It is the first thing we saw when we arrived in San Pedro, Honduras. Homemade tents lining the streets, families huddled inside to stay dry. People who had little to begin with now have practically nothing.
We don't have a country. The whole country's gone.
It's been 2 weeks since Hurricane Mitch took aim at Central America. For most in Honduras, it's been 2 miserable weeks. From the air, you can see how bad it was when the rain finally ended. From the ground, you can see how devastating it still is. People's belongings, at least what's left, are covered with watery mud. Mauricio Arillo tells us he lost almost everything.
The flood was over the roof.
Tenemos 4 días.
They've been cleaning 4 days.
All over the country, there is destruction. Everyone is feeling the pain. 6,000 dead, thousands more still unaccounted for. Entire villages wiped out. In the capital city, it looks like a war zone. The river overflowed into downtown. Muddy debris is still 6 feet deep.
I'm just trying to clean my house. That's all I'm trying to do. See what I can save.
But people are dazed. It's as if they don't even know where to begin. Luckily, the victims of Mitch are uniting to help one another. Right now, I'm standing in downtown Tegucigalpa, the capital of Honduras, where you can see behind me, they formed an assembly line to try to clear out all of this debris. The main concern right now is seeing what's buried underneath all of this mess.
This is a disaster. This is horrible.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, never.
Search and rescue dogs are brought in to dig for bodies. The smell of death is overwhelming. Students from the University of Honduras arrived to help with the cleanup.
Are you prepared for what you'll find underneath all of this?
We're prepared for anything. You know, we just expect the worst right now.
More than anything, there is an air of desperation. Food and water shortages are getting worse. That's because getting to the areas that need it most is almost impossible. 169 bridges are destroyed. Roads are completely washed out. In some cases, the only way to get relief in is by helicopter. The fear is the people who weren't killed during Mitch will die of hunger and/or diseases. We sat down with Honduran President Carlos Flores.
We have lost in 72 hours what we took us to construct 40 or 50 years.
And even though international aid arrives almost every hour, much more is needed.
We cannot do it alone. There's no way we cannot walk alone. We have to work with some friends.
Rebuilding will take years, but with a lot of prayer and a little help from up above, Hondurans say they have the strength to get through it. With photojournalist Bob Pierce reporting from Honduras, I'm Kim Holden, Fox 8 News. The scope of the disaster is almost unbelievable. More than a week after Hurricane Mitch tore through Honduras, this is the scene. Massive amounts of mud everywhere. Food and water hardly anywhere. People are stunned.
We have to take water from other places because all the systems are damaged. There's no water. We can't clean the house. We're only taking the mud out. That's all we can do.
On the streets of the capital city, it is a struggle just to survive. These victims are desperately trying to clear away 6 feet of mud and debris brought in by a raging river. Homes that slid down the mountainside teeter on the edge of collapse. To give you an idea of how massive the destruction is, I'm standing in an area of Tegucigalpa where there used to be homes and businesses. Now there are nothing but cars, some of them completely buried. Those cars came rushing in with the floodwaters. It is the same tragedy all over the country. People are begging for help, and the help is pouring in. International aid arrives hourly at the airports that are open. Former President George Bush came in with an organization called AmeriCares. He told me he was sickened by the devastation he saw in just a couple of hours.
I saw a hillside here in Tegucigalpa that was once full of homes, and now it's simply just dirt, no growth on it, and underneath that rubble, underneath that dirt, are homes and bodies and who knows what else. I mean, it's appalling.
What's even more appalling is how difficult it's been to get the relief supplies to the people who need it most.
All the commerce in the country has been lost. We have lost more than 169 bridges.
People are using amazing means to give and get help. Thousands are still stranded, completely surrounded by water. Both U.S. and Honduran military choppers are dropping supplies from the air. But even in areas not cut off, the shortages are at a crisis level. Babies are being bathed in dirty water. Even in shelters, there is very little food. People left with nothing now face the possibility of hunger and disease.
We have people with some disease in the skin because we don't have water so they can bath.
But just as important is the need for medicine. This 5-year-old, whose parents are missing, complains of pains in her arm and stomach. The shelter staff gives her a mixture of vitamins and water, but say her problems may very well be psychological.
Bien rico, rico.
For now, even the smallest of victims are helping each other cope.
Rico, ¿te vas a venir?
You're looking at the industrial center for the entire country of Honduras, San Pedro Sula, crippled in almost every aspect. People are literally living on the streets. Hurricane Mitch wiped out their homes, and to make matters worse, many are now out of work.
And it's going to take us, I don't know how many years, with all kinds of help, to bring back our country to where it was.
A third world country to begin with, you might say time was standing still in Honduras. From an economic standpoint, with Mitch, the country took a huge step back in time.
We have lost in 72 hours what we took us to construct 40 or 50 years.
You can see why there is little ground transportation. So far, there's evidence of 169 bridges destroyed, 45 highways severely damaged. Same goes for another 200 access roads. That's 70% of the country's infrastructure, to the tune of $1 billion at the very least.
All the commerce in the country has been lost.
A big chunk of that commerce comes from agriculture. Bananas are one of the country's main exports. But take a look at the farms. They are underwater. Almost all of the 50,000 acres of banana plants in the country are destroyed. You can tell the plants are dead when the leaves turn yellow like this one, but even though this plant still has fruit on it, these bananas will never ripen. And for all of Honduras, that's an $800 million loss. It's the first time ever the entire crop's been wiped out. It was simply too much water for too long.
The banana plant, even though it's about 75 to 80% water, it cannot stand standing water, saturation, for very long periods of time. So we had the plantation practically underwater more than 7 days, and that is enough to affect the seed.
Arnaldo Palma is the president of Chiquita in Honduras. The company has suspended labor for its 7,300 employees. No bananas will be exported for at least another 2 years. By May, he hopes to plant grain instead.
Whatever gains and whatever earnings we get from the planting of the grains, we will give it to them, either for their consumption or for their selling to the local market.
In any case, it's a huge setback, and it's not just bananas. The shrimp industry reports $150 million in damage. Between tobacco and coffee, another $200 million. And forget tourism, the country's expecting a $100 million loss there. Add to all of that the loss of life, at least 6,000 dead. And you can see why many say the whole country is gone. Still, there is faith in rebuilding, no matter how long it takes.
We cannot do it alone. It's no way we cannot walk alone. We have to work with some friends, and United States is a friend.
In Honduras, Kim Holden, Fox 8 News. It is the most valuable export in Honduras. Across the country, there are more than 50,000 acres of banana plants. But 2 weeks after Hurricane Mitch, practically every plant is dead.
This is first time that the plantation has been literally wiped out in history. The previous biggest event was the Fifi, it was another hurricane, but there was not a total destruction.
Arnaldo Palma is the president of Chiquita in Honduras. He's having a hard time believing the entire crop is gone. An even harder time figuring out how to help his 7,300 employees now out of work. In the fields, workers are still trying to salvage what few bananas are left, but they aren't for sale.
People's taking bananas from over there to give to the homeless people in Lima.
The fields are a muddy mess. Some are still flooded. Nationwide, it's an $800 million loss. Banana plants aren't easy to grow to begin with, so consider this. They normally take an average of 2 inches of rain per week. During Hurricane Mitch, they got 50 inches in 4 days.
So if you have standing water, after 3 days, the root system starts rotting. The minute the root system starts rotting, then they cannot support the water needs of the plant, and then that's where the leaf starts turning yellow, and they start doubling and wilting and rotting and disappear.
Bananas make up almost a fifth of the total exports in Honduras. Without them, growers say there will be a world shortage, and that could mean higher prices. At least for now, Chiquita says it will help ship disaster relief supplies free of charge from the states. But it could be 2 years before it ships bananas again out of Honduras. They are some of the most powerful images of the aftermath of Hurricane Mitch. Days after the storm tore through Honduras, entire families are stuck on rooftops. The water still 8 feet deep.
These people were screaming, they were dying. The water was our main problem in the first beginning, but we have no problem. No tenemos problema ahorita con agua.
So, how long before these people can get out?
This is a very good question. I may say some areas we need at least 15 days to reach them by car.
And this is why you need a 4-wheel drive just to get into some of the remote areas of the country. Homes are destroyed. So are lives. Many victims are still out of touch. American and Honduran soldiers map out a strategy to bring in relief. U.S. Army helicopters are flown in from a nearby base in Honduras. On board, the soldiers are able to fit 8,000 pounds of disaster relief. On average, 7 pounds of food and water per stranded family.
Just wish we could carry more, make the trips faster.
There are still about 9,000 people who are surrounded by water. These Black Hawk helicopters are getting ready to go in with food and water and drop them into areas that can't be reached. We're about to get on. In a matter of minutes, the Black Hawks are airborne. From the sky, you can see why there's no way out and only one way in. The choppers land in the middle of a flooded field. As soon as we touch down, victims of Mitch are anxiously waiting. As soon as they realize what's on board, they make a run for the chopper. They are desperate. Dozens help unload the supplies in as orderly of a fashion as you could expect from people who are practically starved. The people here live on a banana plantation and they've lost all of their crops. They've also been without food and water for 10 days.
Everybody over here have been hungry for maybe 10 days,
You haven't had food or water?
No, nothing.
What do you think when you see the helicopter coming in?
Everybody say, come, bro.
For the first time since Hurricane Mitch, people are smiling. So are the American soldiers who are now flying 2 to 3 missions like this one every day. It's even more rewarding for our pilot, George Goodman. He's from New Orleans, now lives in South Florida, and has been through more than his share of hurricanes.
It makes us feel good because they're happy to see us. We're happy to bring the food to them. So, it makes us feel like we're doing something worthwhile.
Worthwhile would be an understatement. It's truly a lifesaver.
So you're happy to see this, though?
Yeah, very happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Okay.
My body happy. I understand. I'm hungry. No water. You understand?
But with each mission like this, there is hope. That the people you leave behind now have a better chance of survival. There is so much destruction.
This has been devastating. I mean, we don't have a country. The whole country is gone.
So much loss.
I have to begin again.
But this is perhaps the most heart-wrenching thing of all. The tiniest victims of Hurricane Mitch who can't help themselves. Children, naked, dirty, hungry, and getting sicker every day. Many are in shelters, their parents dead or missing. And that's where a mother's touch is truly needed. Since Hurricane Mitch, Virginia Estrada has given her life to this shelter in Tegucigalpa.
Tengo que trabajar para todo. Voy a un albergue, voy a otro.
I work a lot in appreciation of how God has blessed me, so I am volunteering to different shelters to work.
She says she thought everyone was going to die at the height of the storm.
Mucho viento, mucho viento,
and the winds were so strong. And then it was like that was the apocalypse.
All Virginia could do was pray.
I started praying to God, please, whatever you have, please have mercy of us.
She's prayed before during hurricanes, but her prayers are usually directed toward New Orleans. Her entire family lives here. Her kids, grandkids, nieces, and nephews. During Hurricane George, they were out of touch for 3 days.
Now I know how worried they were about us here.
And she knows the importance of reaching out to those in need. Every day, Virginia comes to this school in her neighborhood, which is now a shelter, and she says she wants to help other children. But here, too, she faces big challenges because there is very little food and hardly any water. They are having to recycle rainwater. It looks contaminated, and chances are it is.
We have people with some disease in the skin because we don't have water so they can bath. No, we don't have medicines, we don't have water.
I mean, how long can you keep a shelter like this open if you don't have the things that you need?
We don't know until now, but we're trying to do our best.
For now, this shelter is feeding the children beans, vegetables, and milk. They've set up a makeshift kitchen outdoors. Virginia brings whatever food she can from home. She is tired and worn out, but not about to give up. Not when she sees beautiful children like this suffering, both physically and mentally. Virginia takes care of these kids like they're her own. For them, her love is just as important as any food and water.
You're getting a lot of love here.
With so much tragedy and devastation, so many of the smallest victims feeling the biggest pain, a mother's touch like Virginia's is irreplaceable. Reporting from Honduras with photojournalist Bob Pierce, I'm Kim Holden, Fox 8 News.